Let the fun begin. Preseason over, training camp over. Practice? We're not talking about practice, Andy.
Maybe a little.
We'll talk about practice. But the NFL season is now underway, kicking off on a Thursday night. Your Buffalo Bills taking the field with a simple 1 o'clock game on a Sunday afternoon. Don't get much of those anymore, but here we go, Andy, in what hopes to be a run towards a Super Bowl championship for all teams, but in Buffalo, frothing at the mouth to get at least back to the big game. And here we are, a different iteration of the Buffalo Bills. And we need to see how this all plays out, and it starts against the Cardinals.
Yeah, we've talked so much throughout the offseason about all the drastic changes that happened at One Bills Drive, whether it's the wide receivers, the safeties, the 6 of 8 captains who left. And it all kind of comes to fruition now. We start to see what we've been talking about all this time, and that's really exciting, whether you're optimistic about the Bills this season or you want to be proven right that the moves they made were not in the right vein.
Right.
It's going to be really interesting. This is a team you don't know exactly what to expect because of so many changes, but you have Josh Allen, you have continuity at head coach, you have a lot of the same key pieces in some areas. So one would be led to believe they would still be good and competitive. Is it a team that can get over that hump? Are they mired in the same place they've been, which is very good but not great? Or do they take a step back?
I am extremely curious to see how this plays out because this is it. This is what superstar quarterbacks need to do. Patrick Mahomes has gone through it. You know, he's lost key players. Chiefs keep winning. Tom Brady did it in New England for 20 years. You lose key players. You change what you did. You go from Randy Moss and Wes Welker to Rob Gronkowski and Julian Edelman. Things change. I'm dying to see how this Bills team evolves because they've been so good, but you still have so many questions going into week one, mainly because there's such a small sample size from the preseason because they took Josh Allen. They decided not to play him against the Steelers with some of the other guys. Injuries, every team deals with them during the preseason. But you had all these questions. And Allen, throughout off-season work and training camp and everything else, as far as getting used to the new guys in the wide receiver room, the new offensive coordinator who now was the guy during the offseason and has the offense set up to go into week one of the regular season here against the Cardinals. How does this all – I'm an optimistic guy. I already said probably ad nauseum this summer, but I said again on the Buffalo End Zone kickoff special before the season started that I'm one of the – sometimes you just need to remove – something, and usually it's a big-time star. I brought up the example of Nomar Garciaparra in the Red Sox. There are other examples out there throughout the NFL that, yeah, they traded him away, and you know what? It brought the team closer together. It allowed other players to come through. My frame of mind right now is thinking that way, even with all the big-time pundits, the big-time NFL reporters, you know, talking high on the Miami Dolphins and a healthy Aaron Rodgers with the New York Jets ruling the AFC East, and maybe the Bills really take a drop here.
It's interesting because this is a team that for so long you kind of knew what their identity was. It was Josh Allen. It was Diggs. It was Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer. It was Matt Milano. And things have kind of changed in that regard. Milano obviously is dealt with injuries the last couple of seasons, and then you say goodbye to Hyde and Poyer, and you say goodbye to Diggs and Gabe Davis, then you're like, all right, it's Josh Allen's show, it's Sean McDermott's show.
Right.
And you talked about Tom Brady and the Patriots going through multiple iterations. They went through like 4 or 5 different groups of teams. Like you go back to like Troy Brown and Deion Branch, and then you got into Moss and Welker, and then, you know, the guys you brought up, Edelman and Gronk, and there were just many changes throughout that time, but there was a constant. It was Bill Belichick. It was Tom Brady.
And that's what the Bills need to prove right now. And I'm not saying, they need to go out and go undefeated or anything like that. But Sean McDermott and Josh Allen, it's on them right now to show like they're Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes.
It's rare that you see a quarterback head coach combo that's had as much success as they've had, but lasts together as long as they have without winning a Super Bowl.
Correct.
Somebody gets impatient at some point, or they have a down year. Is this maybe the little down year? I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying that anyone's job is not secure. It would take something massive for me to think Sean McDermott would be let go at any point in the next couple of seasons, just because of the goodwill he's built up and building this franchise up so far. It's hard for me because I don't know. I'm not going to make a grand proclamation that, yes, I think the loss of Diggs and the loss of the leaders is too much for this team to overcome. They don't have the offensive firepower. They can't do it. That's a possibility to me, right? It's a possibility that maybe they slip back to 9 wins or they get 10 and sneak into the wild card and they don't have enough. I don't see this team at all slipping back to like 6-7 wins or anything like that, short of a catastrophic injury to one of the major players.
Right.
We know who we're talking about here.
Not going to jinx it.
No, but it also wouldn't surprise me if things did work out in the positive and they still are able to win 10, 11 games, win the division, and get to the divisional round. Or you predicted the other day that they'd get to the AFC Championship, right?
Yeah.
That wouldn't surprise me either. It's really unknown. How does this offense come together? How does the back end of the defense work? There's questions now at linebacker with Dorian Williams. Is he the guy that can replace Matt Milano? The pass rush, we're still waiting to see if Von Miller ever gets back. So there's just so many questions that would lead one to think there could be a slide back. But it also wouldn't surprise me for guys to elevate and be better. Is this still a Super Bowl team? I don't think that they're going to reach the Super Bowl. It's not impossible when we're talking about big picture here for this 2024 season as we near the opener. But I still think they're a contender and in that conversation to at least be a division winner and fight for that chance.
I will say this. If the Bills don't really lose a step, maybe like a slight step back, but if they're still one of the elite of the AFC, all those arguments over the past few years about Josh Allen being MVP of the league and showing his importance, if they're there, I would find it hard to believe that Josh Allen doesn't end up being the MVP at the end of the year with the situation he was put in. With what's going on with the team right now, if they're that good still.
I think they'd probably – this always happens with MVP. They probably still would need to be one of the top 2 seeds, which is a tall ask, right, to get there.
Right.
But I think you're right, to your point. If they do, and if they're the 1 seed or the 2 seed somehow and they kind of rise above maybe the national expectation, the betting expectation, I mean, it's got to be on him, right?
And all this plays out, Andy, I was thinking about this with college football and what happened with Florida State, who's now 0-2, and one of the dandies going.
Does week 0 count?
but one of the darlings going into the season and are 0-2, and they lost over in Ireland. They lost to Boston College. Even with the NFL, you think you know how things are going to play out at the beginning of the year. No one thought the Lions were going to do what they did at the beginning of last season, and now they're one of the darlings going into this season. The Bills, for a couple of years, were one of the Super Bowl favorites. Now people have just wrote them off, most of the experts, that they can't do it. But I look at the Bills' schedule. It could put them in a great spot to start the season, and when you break things into quarters like you do, or it could be a disaster, Andy, through the first month of the season if things don't play out right. And it starts on Sunday with the Cardinals team that, I don't know, to have a solid start to the season, a solid first quarter, you kind of have to win this weekend.
There's no excuse for them to not beat the Arizona Cardinals. Yes, it's another NFL team, and yes, they have players, and they have Marvin Harrison and Kyler Murray and James Conner and, some depth on defense. You got to win this game at home to get your season off on the right foot, because you're right. Look at the next few weeks. You go to Miami. You host Jacksonville on Monday night, which, of course, is never easy. Miami also on a short week.
Right.
On a Thursday night game. You're at Baltimore, at Houston, at the Jets, right? Like,
crazy.
Wow, that's a gauntlet right off the bat.
When you look at that, when the schedule first comes out, I was like, okay, now looking at it with the season about to kick off, I'm just staring at that like
It's making you cough.
It's making me sick to my stomach.
I'll take it here. Let me vamp a little bit. I know exactly what you're saying, because the more you dive into this early season schedule, it's really hard. Like, you got to get to week 7 and the Titans to get a break. And then Seattle, which is on the road. That's not necessarily easy. Seattle's okay. They're not great. And then Dolphins, Colts, Chiefs, 49ers, Rams, Lions. And then you close it out with your old buddies from the AFC East over in Massachusetts and New Jersey. So, they've got to get off to a good start. You go a long way if you can beat Arizona and then go down to Miami and win.
Right.
Which is no given. Okay. Jacksonville still has given the Bills a lot of problems. And then you're like, Baltimore, Super Bowl kind of team. Houston, a lot of people talking about them as a Super Bowl kind of team. A lot of people think the Jets are going to be better than the Bills. So, you've got to take care of business this week. Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's amazing, players and coaches and everyone talk about the unfamiliarity you have with a team from the West. 2020 was the last time they played. Both teams totally different, really, aside from the quarterback. Mm-hmm. When you break it all down, and we all know the Hail Murray happened and yada, 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 that plays no role in what's going on here, Andy. But you also have an Arizona team with a second-year head coach. Kyler Murray was banged up for the last 2 seasons. I think he was out 11 months or so, played in maybe 8 games.
Yeah, he played half the games last year.
Had a 3-5 record. You have a stud rookie wide receiver, but it's his first game in the NFL. Going into this one, it has all the makings of, okay, this is a game you need at the beginning of the season to start off strong. They're coming out here for a 1 o'clock kickoff. That's has to be awkward for, I get going from east to west, but coming back here for a 1 o'clock game that's, 11 o'clock in the morning in your brain?
10
in the morning in your brain. Math.
Well, are they mountain time? They might be mountain time.
I don't know. And I don't have the energy to look it up.
Right, whatever. There's a time difference.
Yeah.
You know that. Yeah, there's no reason for the Bills to lose this game. They can't. You look at so many different advantages. The Bills have played against Kyler Murray before. They know what it's like to play against running quarterbacks. They've faced Lamar. They've faced Jalen Hurts.
But there's so many different faces that
I know.
That's the part that gets you. It's like if you go in with a Bills roster from a couple of years ago into this game with guys actually being that much younger too, I'm thinking that this is a slam dunk win out the gate for the Bills. But, man, just so many questions.
Yeah, it could take some time for them. Offensively, we know that it may take some time for Joe Brady's offense to click with all these different receivers. Who does Josh Allen trust coming out the gate? Who does he trust through the games and finds out who he can trust? I think we know he's going to probably trust Shakir and Kincaid quite a bit, and Knox to a degree.
And I think Curtis Samuel, in limited gameplay, he did have that one screen pass, and you got Samuel who can do a lot more as well. We'll wait and see what the Bills' offense is all about. but it looks like he's one of the guys prime for a big role with what Joe Brady wants to do on offense as far as being used differently throughout the game.
And that's exactly it. Like, he may not have the crazy volume of catches, but he's going to be used in a variety of ways. He's going to be used as a running back sometimes. They'll use him on jet sweeps. They'll put him in all sorts of different positions on the field. And he's like a run after the catch guy a little bit. He's got some ability there that they haven't been able to unlock in anybody really over the last several years.
Right.
That's important for them. I still think Shakir has a chance to have a monster season. Like,
incredible.
I think sometimes in fantasy football, since all my drafts are over, I'll say this, I take him a little ahead of where people might, because I think he's just going to have a really big year. Like, I think he could push 1,000 yards and 80 catches.
They probably might need him to actually do that.
Right. So, I mean, there's all those questions. And then, when you look at the other side of the ball for the Bills, they have had a propensity at times to struggle against good running teams. Last year, Arizona really ran the ball a lot, and James Conner's still pretty darn good.
Mm-hmm.
Kyler Murray is a threat in the run game. And then they have Marvin Harrison. They have Trey Benson. They have McBride, the tight end. Like, that could be a matchup that's worth keeping an eye on, the Bills' rush defense against Arizona's rush offense. I think that's something that's a hidden little thing in this game.
And that unit has some guys returning. Probably when you look at the positions across the board, the O-line and D-line are the ones most like they were a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the question. That game against the Chiefs, no pass rush whatsoever on Patrick Mahomes when you needed it.
Right.
And those guys are still there. They're another year older. I don't know. I mean, I'm going to talk myself into the Bills not having a good season by the time we're done talking about it.
Well, because I'm more often pessimistic, or I throw a douse of water of reality on things when we have these conversations.
Reality's overrated, Andy.
Like when we were talking with Stevie Johnson, I'm tempering. He's very,
16-win season.
Right. He's very positive about the Bills this season. And I kind of temper that with, okay, it could or it couldn't. And I'm not here to tell anybody who's feeling optimistic about this season that they shouldn't.
Right.
Because every team thinks they've got pieces, unless you're like New England maybe this year.
Yeah, they're dumpster fire right now.
Yeah, how's your family back in Massachusetts and that New England region feeling about things in New England?
Oh, those big New England fans that nothing was ever good enough anywhere outside New England for 20-something years now. No faith whatsoever in the Patriots doing anything going into the season. It's you get that with the national media and people outside of New England, but it's like that in New England. There's no confidence in anyone I grew up with. I went to college in New England as well. My Patriot friends just don't have faith in May. They don't have faith in Jacoby Brissett. One of their defensive stars forced their way. It's a hot mess there, man.
Yeah.
But
so I steered that conversation off in a different direction. We're jumping all over the place right now. But to the point that I think the overarching theme of this episode of this podcast is, are they ready? Are the changes the right changes? Is this team prepared with what they have to continue what they've been and be better? Because that's the ultimate goal. They haven't been to the AFC Championship game since 13 seconds.
Right. No, that was divisional round.
Oh, right. The year before 13 seconds is what I meant to say.
Now I'm correcting you.
Well, that never happens. Write that down. Let's mark that guys down.
What's today's date? The 6th?
That's the 5th. But I can't give anybody a solid, this is what I think the Bills are, and I am gung-ho on that because I don't know, right? And you don't know what you don't know.
Here's the thing we've been hearing a lot, Andy, Everybody eats. That's all every wide receiver. Josh Allen said it. Blah, 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 on and on and on.
Yes.
And in the back of my head is, for your sake, I hope so.
Right.
This all sounds well and good. Well, tell us what's good about the Bills' offense. Everybody eats. Everybody's going to get theirs. Whoever has to step up, all 11 players have to step up. But if one guy's eating one game, another guy's eating another game, everyone's eating. We all have different kinds of pass catchers that will be out there working. We have running backs working in the passing game, which we heard that a lot last year, and James Cook keeps dropping the ball left and right. That didn't work out. So this all sounds good. You got the names.
Yeah. My question is this, though. If everybody eats, who's making the big play? Who's the guy that is counted on when you need the big play, when you need that big third down? If there's only 3 or 4 wide receivers on the field at a time. So this everybody eats thing, you're right. It sounds great. At the end of the day, Josh has to have a couple guys that he relies upon. Do you need to force feed the ball to Dalton Kincaid? No. Like you did to Stephon Diggs at times? No, but also when you did that for the most part, Stephon Diggs caught the football for a lot of its time and made big plays. You still have to have that somehow, some way. And I'm getting fired up here a little bit because we've heard so much about everybody eats.
Right.
Somebody's got to eat a little more, right? Somebody's got to have the winning combination there.
Right. Somebody has to eat when it matters. And I'm looking at Khalil Shakir and Dalton Kincaid off the jump without the season starting.
Yes.
That might change as the season goes on, but those are the 2 guys on the roster right now that he has history with, be it limited. And if it were me, I'd be like 4th and 6 or 3rd and 6. I know that if I get the ball near Khalil Shakir, even if he's a yard short, he's going to do whatever it takes to get the extra yards because we've seen him do that. So, fine. Khalil Shakir is the man. I say he eats more than everyone else.
I am not far off thinking that he's going to be a surprising breakout star in the NFL this season.
Yeah.
He's my pick, and I've said Kincaid too, but he's my pick to lead the receivers in catches and yards. I just think like he's just really consistent. Josh has the trust of him. I think he's your guy. And is he your prototypical number 1 A.J. Brown, Jamar Chase, C.D. Lamb? No, but I think this offense is going to operate a little differently to the point of everybody eats, but you still have to have that character in crunch time that makes big plays. And a lot of people like to talk about the Chiefs model of like, oh, they had garbage wide receivers and they made it work. Well, yeah, they also Travis Kelce's top 2 or 3 tight ends ever, to my mind, with Gronk and like Tony Gonzalez.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Right. Patrick Mahomes is already being considered by many as the greatest quarterback ever. 6 years into his career, 7 years, whatever it is, 9 years. 9th season, I think he's going into, something like that.
Yeah.
So you can't just think that that's going to happen because that's how the Chiefs did it. You have to have a lot of things go right. You also have to remember they came on strong with like Rashee Rice last season, and they had different contributors. So to just say, all right, we're going to just say, all right, everybody's going to have 50 catches between like 4 or 5 different guys.
Right.
It doesn't ever work that way, and I don't see that happening. But that's not to say I don't think someone can't step up and be a big target. Like Stephon Diggs was a 5th-round pick. He got good, right?
Right.
Maybe Shakir can get good, right? It happens. Not everybody's first-round pick, Megatron, A.J. Green, Marvin Harrison Jr., to bring in a more recent example of guys. So I think they still need to go get more players like that, and that's another conversation.
Right.
But that's not to say someone won't have a big year.
How about Keon Coleman? I know during the show you talked about him being a threat in the red zone.
And it was funny because Stevie Johnson said he didn't see that he was going to be a big red zone threat. Respectfully, I kind of disagreed with Stevie. I think in the preseason, like, they looked to him many times on slants or back of the end zone kind of plays in the red zone.
With backup quarterbacks, too, which...
Right. And Stevie's point was more he's got to learn how to shake guys in tight spaces and things like that. But I don't think that's his game anyway.
Right.
So his game is just go up and get it or use your body to shield a guy off.
Easy for Stevie to say, who is good at shaking guys loose.
Well, that's right. I mean, Stevie was incredible in his unorthodox style. Like, he abused Darrelle Revis, who's considered one of the best corners ever.
Right.
He was one of the guys who could shake him free and not be locked down by Revis Island.
And the question marks, Andy, when you take a deep dive into what this team is going to be, you always start with the offense because of Josh Allen there, but the amount of new faces on defense is like equal to on offense. The questions at safety going in and dealing with injuries throughout the entire summer at that position, even up until within the last week or so, it was, when's Cole Bishop coming back? When's Mike Edwards coming back? We found out earlier in the week that it will be Rapp and Damar Hamlin, at least for week 1, which is a real cool story in its own right involving Damar Hamlin now making his way back after the incident that happened in Cincinnati where he collapsed, the recovery, everything else that led up to this moment. I think Bobby Babich mentioned something about it during his press conference this week about having confidence in knowing that Damar Hamlin is in the right headspace.
Yeah, Bobby Babich was asked about that, and he said, I sat him down probably in the spring before they started practicing and just asked Damar, where are you mentally? And Babich said, from that point in, I knew he was locked in and ready to be Damar Hamlin, the football player and the person, which to me meant, all right, we're going 100 miles an hour at football.
And keep in mind, Hamlin was in that 3-man rotation at the beginning of camp when everyone was healthy. It's not like he's only there because of injury.
Right. So, I mean, a lot of people thought, oh, you know, Damar's had a nice story. He's had a good spring at OTAs and minicamp. Let's give him a token. Hey, you're going to start at safety with the ones the first day of training camp. A lot of people thought that. And then there was a rotation throughout camp. Mike Edwards got his shot. Cole Bishop got his shot. They all had their days with Rapp. But through that rotation, Hamlin still got rotation. And then they got hurt. And availability is the most important ability, right? That's a Sean McDermott saying.
Coach speak.
Right. And that gave Damar his opportunity. And he's mostly made the most of it. Babich said that there's been a few times when his position coach or when Babich have challenged Damar through this process. You got to be better at this, dude. And he immediately corrects it, gets it fixed, and does it the right way the next time. I think they're feeling pretty confident in him in what he, in his 4th year, might be able to do here.
Yeah. And you have...
I still have questions, but they feel good about it.
And you have Rapp out there as the veteran, but, I mean, man, Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer are so long there. But as I was saying throughout last season, not to be a stick in the mud, but there were some games where the age started to show with both of them last year. And you know that they wanted to get younger there at the position, but the leadership, Andy, huge on that back end of that defense. And then, of course, you have Terrell Bernard, who was named captain, too, who you refer to as the quarterback of the defense. But still, those safeties lining everyone up and making sure everything's right on that back end is going to be what has always been a big part of the Bills' success on defense with Hyde and Poyer, and someone's going to need to step up.
Yeah, that is the other key question. Like, we've talked a lot about the receivers and we've talked a lot about safety because it's new, in essence. Taylor Rapp is stepping into a role with the Bills that he hasn't fully had before. Yes, he was a starter in Los Angeles with the Rams, but this is a different team. And he had his 1 year here, and then there was up and down success and failure for Rapp, I think, in that first season. How exactly the Bills wanted to utilize him. What role was he strongest at? Is he a kind of a strong safety, hard hitter, that sort of thing? Can he play in the back end? Can he play center field? And the Bills' safeties are kind of interchangeable, or at least they like to be.
Right.
You know, if you've got a guy who's a better in the box player, they'll use him more, like they did with Poyer, and especially as things slowed down, maybe just a hair. And Hyde was playing deep, right? And that's kind of how it worked. But I mean, that leadership is huge. That knowledge of the defense and knowing where each other are going to be, that's gone too. I think Taron Johnson's kind of a key in all of this too.
Man, the forgotten man in my mind.
Well, I mean,
he's huge on that Bills defense.
Right. I thought he was going to be a captain this year for sure.
Yeah.
Because they've made a point about talking about him and his leadership. I mean, he's kind of the old man of the Bills secondary now in terms of
maybe he's one of the 10 guys in the support.
The leadership council.
The leadership council.
The council of elders has spoken.
You
are banished from the locker room.
All meeting in robes in the dark on a Saturday night before the game.
Right.
Oh.
Right.
Yeah. So
we're going off the rails here, as we're known to do.
So how do you think, like, I can't, you and I talked about this before coming on, but I can't get a read on what the AFC East is going to look like at this point as the season kicks off. There's just too many questions with each one of these teams. It's, Aaron Rodgers missed all of last season with the Jets. They got weapons there. Their defense is so good over there that if they can put something together, Jets are a threat. Miami Dolphins, you have Tua down there. You have Tyreek Hill. You have some games where they just demolish teams offensively last year. And then, as we said, the Patriots are duds. But there's question, like, I can't say for certain
who wins that division.
How the AFC East is going to shape up.
Let's do it this way.
Wait.
Okay.
You have Bills, Cardinals, Jets with the 49ers for week 1, and the Dolphins with Jacksonville. So a little bit, is Jacksonville still on, Jacksonville, they're such a wild card that, it's hard to predict what you're going to get from them.
Which team, if the Bills aren't to win the division, which team is more likely to beat them out, the Jets or the Dolphins?
I have to say the Dolphins.
Really? See, I'm the other way.
I
don't trust the Dolphins because I think they're going to be high-powered offense again, but when it's clutch, I just don't see it. When it's winter, when it's playoff time, nut-cutting time, so to speak, as they like to say.
Right.
Like, I don't trust them. I think if Rodgers is healthy, even if he's not what he was 3-4 years ago, MVP Rodgers, but he's just good Rodgers.
Yeah.
That team is so talented on both sides of the ball. I have a hard time thinking if he's fine, like if he's okay, if he's an above-average quarterback, that team is not pretty darn good.
I can't get past the Jets' own history of things just going wrong for them all the time.
Yeah.
That
like Aaron Rodgers tearing his Achilles on the first drive of the game.
Literally, Andy, before the start of last season, I was listening to this podcast. It had a Jets fan as one of the guys on it.
Mm-hmm.
And he literally said they had an argument on when Aaron Rodgers would get injured and ruin the Jets season. Would it be right before the playoffs or would it be on opening night, not even a quarter into the game? And that's exactly how it played out. I know Jets fans have that mentality. We know a couple of them.
Yeah, we do. They're the woe is me type.
The woe is me type. Everything always goes wrong for them.
Because it does.
Wins. And the Jets can kind of back that up. But maybe I have a bit of that stuck in my cranium that's always going to happen. But for me, the Dolphins just seem too legit on offense. And, I think their defense is pretty solid down in Miami too.
I think their defense might take a step back. Even.
Okay.
But I think we just see those two teams differently.
Yeah, and that's fine.
Yeah, for sure.
And still, as annoying as it is, the Chiefs are the Chiefs. They're the best team in the league until they're not the best team in the league. The Ravens are the Ravens. Bills have to play both those teams during the season. And they have each other to start the season, so one's going to knock the other one down a peg to start the season.
How do you feel about the Bengals? There's a lot of people who think the Bengals are going to be back and really good with a healthy Joe Burrow. I don't know. I don't know about them. Jamar Chase, I don't think is going to play because he hasn't signed a contract yet.
And they're a mess.
Or he's holding out, rather.
And then
holding in.
Who's the other guy? T. Higgins?
T. Higgins is on the franchise tag.
I think left practice or is now on the injury report going into their game with the Patriots. So I don't know. And we'll see how Joe Burrow reacts coming off an injury-plagued season last year. But I wouldn't count the Bengals out by any means in the AFC until we get a good look at – that's what's so fun about this season is the last couple of seasons you really had a feel on what it was going to look like. Other than the Chiefs and the Ravens, who I just think are going to be good just because of –
They are. They are good.
They're good teams.
Yep. They're well-run, good quarterbacks.
And then you go down the back end like the Patriots and teams like that. You know they're going to be bad, but –
Like Houston is probably going to be really good again.
That's another one.
They're just loaded with talent, man.
I understand that, but it's like
the AFC is ridiculous. We're not even talking about like the Browns being a playoff team, Jacksonville, who should have been a playoff team. Can Jim Harbaugh get anything out of the Chargers? You'd think they'd be better.
Somehow the Steelers are always in the playoffs.
Let me go off on the Steelers for a second. I cannot stand the fact that the Pittsburgh Steelers constantly make the playoffs when their team is not good.
Right.
They play football the wrong way.
And they made it interesting against
They
the
play
Bills
football
in
the
playoff.
old way. I'm not saying the wrong way. The old way. It just their defense.
Yeah.
And just they draft all these receivers, but they never find the right quarterback since Ben. And even when Ben's last few years, they were not great.
Still made the playoffs.
They how? How? Like Mike Tomlin, man. People think he's not a great coach. He might be a good enough coach to get some of these teams into the playoffs.
Lost to Tim Tebow and the Broncos one year.
I mean, they have not won big in a long time, the Steelers.
Yeah,
oh God.
It's
There's
annoying.
a lot of Steelers fans around and respect to, 6 Super Bowls and all those things, but like, my God. Can't they just be like 4-13 at some point and pick in the top 10?
Maybe this is the year, Andy. Speaking of that, we were talking about this. I'm sick of the Chiefs.
Yes.
Being the team to beat. The whole Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes thing to me has been played out. And like I said, I grew up in New England. I know a lot of people in New England. I now 100% get the hatred of the New England Patriots for 20 years. They win the Super Bowl after September 11th happened. Everyone was like, oh, a team called the Patriots won the Super Bowl. That's cool. But, I mean, it's
only in Boston did anyone think that.
Okay. I thought the whole world thought that. I thought Paul McCartney sang about it. But it's like the quote in Batman, you're the hero long enough to turn into the villain, and the Patriots stuck around way too long to become the villain. But now with what the Chiefs have been able to do, and they're just on TV all the time, and they're going to the Super Bowl all the time, I'm just done. I don't want to see them.
The Chiefs are far more likable, to my mind, than the Patriots.
Well, I get it.
Way more fun. Mahomes, they're Andy Reid is like Belichick, onto the Cincinnati.
By the way, he was on Inside
he's
the
amazing.
NFL now. He's awesome.
He's awesome. I just saw that he has Instagram now.
Yeah.
That was all a shtick for football.
Yeah.
that team was so dislikable. They had so few, like
Gronk's a blast.
the
He's from
Patriot,
Buffalo.
the Patriot way, and all that. Gronk is cool, but yes, like I find the Chiefs and their style of play to be much more entertaining. The Patriots were just so buttoned up, and Tom was so. Look at me, I'm the leader of men. Like just oh my God. You don't get like people, complain about Mahomes and him the way he walks and asks for penalties and all those sorts of things. But I find the Chiefs far more entertaining as just a general fan of football than the Patriots. And oh my God, I grew up in Buffalo. We won't get it twisted. Before I was in TV,
right,
and a reporter, I was a Bills fan as a kid. Oh, my God, it just wore on you so much.
I remember being at a party in Jamestown with our buddy Dan Wells throwing a party for his birthday in October, and it was Bills-Patriots Sunday Night Football, Teddy Bruschi's long-awaited return after having a stroke, and the entire
place
hated
it.
Just every 5 seconds, a cutaway to Bruschi, a cutaway to Bruschi. What a great story this is. The Patriots are great, blah, blah. And the whole party was like, Jesus, can we just shut the game off? ESPN is doing nothing but kissing the Patriots' ass the entire time the game was going on.
It's got to be like how people who aren't a fan of seeing Taylor Swift all the time now feel about that. But this was a player.
Yeah.
Not the star tight end's girlfriend.
Who had a sack in the game, and then that became it. But I get it now. Like,
because they started out as like this goody two-shoes team.
Side note, I was a Bills fan as a little kid in the 80s because the Patriots stunk. I just always want to put that out there.
You also did like the Dolphins at one point, too, did you not?
Like the Dolphins at one point.
Never the Jets, though.
Never the Jets. I did as a kid like the Steelers with Lynn Swann, John Stallworth, and Terry Bradshaw. But that was like for a year.
Always a front runner, fair weather fan.
The Bills were not a front runner when I liked them. I just liked the fact that they had blue pants.
But they were like a playoff team in like 1980-ish.
Joe Ferguson, Joe Cribbs.
Yeah.
Those were my guys.
They were decent.
I had little football dolls from Sears. They had stickers you could put them on.
They lost to the Dolphins for an entire decade. Tore down the goalposts.
Yep.
That season. Wouldn't that be something to see?
They don't do that anymore.
No. That would be wild.
That I could see AFC Championship in Buffalo. They beat the Chiefs. Nah, I just don't see it.
I think
these
with
days.
like the way security is now and stuff. Plus you don't have like you watch that clips of that.
Yeah.
Another tangent sidebar here, but watch old games like that when they're tearing down the field goal posts and whatever. And you just see the big banners from Marlboro.
Oh yeah,
Budweiser. Like you still see Budweiser, but just it takes you back.
Every stadium when you go back has a big Marlboro sign in one of the end zones.
That famous picture of the Bills fan, that older woman smoking cigarettes in the stands during the Super Bowl days. What a world.
Yes. So Andy, how about this? We'll go through the game real quick with the Cardinals coming up. Take a look at it. Bills versus Cardinals. Spread. Bills -6. I go through BetMGM.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I'm getting this from. I've seen 6.5 on other websites, but spread at 6. I think the Bills cover that spread.
I would agree. I think if people are going to be real nervous if that's like a 5-point game or they win with a field goal
or a field goal.
Win by 4. People will be real nervous about that.
Over/under 48.5. Week 1 of the NFL season, I don't go crazy with points going up on the board. I think a lot of teams just play to get points, meaning field goals and touchdowns when you can, to just rack up points and win.
Betting unders is just not fun. You're rooting for them not to score.
I know.
That's hard. I would probably go under, though, in this case. 24 points apiece, roughly. That's a lot in this kind of a game. I could see more of a 24-17, 24-10 type game.
I'm going with a 21-10 game for the Bills.
Yeah.
That's how I'm going to take a look at this. I think you might get, like, the Bills offense gets off to a good start, but then Second half comes around, adjustments made, and then it's just play the game to get to 1-0.
I'll say 24-14.
Fair enough.
It sounds right. We both they
the
covered the spread there, right?
That's the under, right?
Yeah. 24-14. That's 38. You said it was 48. So we're under.
Yeah.
And we covered the spread.
No, I tend to sometimes screw that up.
I know you do. We're going over it here. Math. Not a strong suit of television anchors and reporters.
Okay, 3 and out, Andy. Best opening day memory as far as the NFL goes. We'll keep it with the Bills. Mine, of course, 2003, 31-0 over the Patriots.
Same.
I was working that day, and where the Patriots were and where the Bills were, it wasn't adding up. And as the game went on, you're like, oh, my God, this might be a turning point in the AFC East. And the feeling after the game was amazing on what they did. You had Lawyer Malloy sacking Tom Brady.
The Sam Adams touchdown.
It was wild.
That was really cool. I was in college when that happened.
Yeah.
And I think, if I recall, I was working at Wegmans on a Sunday and would pop into the break room every so often to see what was going on in the game. This is pre-smartphones and all that stuff. And you'd see the score go up, and you're like, holy cow, this is amazing. And that was just really cool because of what the Patriots had been, and they'd won already. And right before the season starts, they release Lawyer Malloy, and he joins the Bills. And
that week, I was visiting my parents in New Hampshire. Lawyer Malloy was released. Get in my car. You didn't have your phone and apps to do anything, so when you're between Albany and Syracuse, you really don't get many radio stations. By the time I got to the Buffalo area, Lawyer Malloy was a Buffalo Bill. Like, my entire trip woke up in the morning, Lawyer Malloy was a Patriot, was released. By the time I went to bed, he was a Buffalo Bill with the game just around the corner.
That also goes back to Belichick's mantra of, like, let's release a guy a year too soon than too late.
Yeah.
They did it with, like, Richard Seymour, different people.
Right.
Who still were productive players. Maybe the Bills are kind of following that mindset now with what they just did in the offseason.
Worked out back then. All right, Andy, not going to ask you what you're watching. Oh, no, I got one other one. College football, Andy.
Yeah.
Is now in full swing. Was never a huge college football fan, but with the way that my schedule works out and our schedule works out now, I've started to follow it a little bit closer and find it a little more entertaining than I ever did. I was always like, oh, these kids get drafted, go to the NFL. I'm not going to glom on to one team, but a lot of duds in week one. Like, I watched a lot of games in between playing golf up in the White Mountains in New Hampshire. Not too many exciting games to start the season.
Yeah, and you want to see more of these, like, big-time programs facing each other, and then, like, some of those games just didn't live up to it.
Clemson, Georgia. My nephew goes to Clemson. We were all eyes and ears on that in the golf carts with the cell phones, and Clemson just looked like crap.
Georgia's a machine.
Right.
They're the new Alabama.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yep.
But, wait, you get Notre Dame, and you'll see Ohio State a ton and all those sorts of things. But then you get into the season part of the schedule, and then it's like, oh, good, I'm turning on ABC or Fox, and, oh, it's Penn State, Iowa again,
Right.
Like, Northwestern, Indiana.
So I'm trying to get more into
I do like college football, and it's especially fun because you can kind of just helicopter in. You don't have to be super into it just to flip on a good game and, a Friday night or Saturday night and one of these West Coast games is going crazy.
That's always fun.
Yeah, so, like, and it's on all day
and
all night. So, and it's fun if you're not working and you're not vested in it. And we talked about this last week. Maybe you are betting a little bit, and that's really fun. That's changed here in New York State a lot.
Right.
I think that is increased interest too. But, like, we both grew up in the Northeast. Like, college football is not a huge deal in the Northeast. It just isn't. Never has been.
Nope, that's not it. Yeah.
Kevin, you there?
Sorry. I was taking a time out. I was trying to look something up, and
Okay.
I'm not going to be able to find it for the next question.
Were you ordering dinner?
No Jersey Mike's just yet. Hopefully they'll hear that I like Jersey Mike's and get a free sub. But, we were moving on to what you doing, what you watching. I know you don't watch a lot of series or anything like that. Funny thing, I was doing the Wyatt Earp versus the Cowboys thing.
Yeah.
Told you it was 3 episodes. It's more than 3 episodes.
Oh, that was my homework, and I totally forgot. So that tells you about my TV viewing habits. What have I been doing? The kids just went back to school today.
Back to school photos on Facebook.
Yeah, we're recording this on a Friday. Good Lord, I wish it was Friday. We're recording this on a Thursday.
It's the 5th.
Right. And, yeah, the kids just went back to school, so that's been fun. Ordered 2 pairs of sneakers for my daughter, who's in 5th grade.
Oh, for your daughter. Okay.
Not for me.
I was going to say, did your wife know you did that?
That's a
But
different
go
story. And one of them was going to take – it was delayed and it was going to take forever, so we ordered her a backup pair. I ended up getting a really cheap pair that she kind of liked, and it was like, all right, you can have some fresh kicks for the first day. That was delayed too. So she had to wear her old sneakers, which was fine, but yeah, as a sneakerhead myself, a little part of me was like, you got to wear last year's. That's
not
a
a good, not a tough start to the school year.
right.
Like that.
She looked cute.
That's all
she
that
pulled it off.
Yeah.
We're all good. My son was rocking his Jordan 4s, the Breads, reimagined, leather. all good.
No more ankle socks. Socks pulled up.
It depends.
Okay.
Depends on the shoe.
All right. Andy, little golf. Bonus getaway I took because of how quirky the Bills' schedule is to start the season. You go Saturday, Thursday, Monday Night Football, giving us a little gap. One more golf trip while it's still decent out before we really get into the thick of things, and I like that.
Do you golf better when you're like out of town?
Hammered?
No. Well, at a new course, like at a different course. No.
Like the course that I always golf at around Buffalo, I know I don't even have to look up yardage. I just know where I am all the time. It depends on the if it's a really nice course. Sometimes you overthink too much, like, oh my God, like the time you get to play Oak Hill when the PGA Championship
That's completely
is out
different.
here. But it's like you just want to do so well, but
You take a huge divot out of the tee box or the fairway. You're like, oh God.
I prefer to play golf at places I know, and golf trip I'm going on, we're playing at 2 courses I played before. So
South Carolina, great golf down there.
love the golf down in the Carolinas.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that. And, but we're in the thick of things now. Football season starting off.
See, this is where we are. We haven't even hit week 1. He's thinking about his break after week 2. This is what I'm dealing with here. At Spectrum News 1 Buffalo and Rochester and upstate New York.
Andy, I had to work Wednesday and Thursday this week.
Oh, jeez.
But we got Sunday. Bills host the Cardinals, Andy.
Oh, I'm
Coming
fired
up at
up,
1
man.
o'clock. We look forward to the Bills postgame show. Buffalo End Zone postgame show. We have Stevie Johnson joining us this year. He'll give us his expertise on what he sees during the Bills game and, of course, what everyone wants to see, the local or the reaction from players and coaches. We always have that from top to bottom.
Yeah, we'll have post-game reaction live. We'll go inside the locker room. We'll have Sean McDermott, Josh Allen, whoever they bring to the post-game media podium to discuss what happened in the game. We'll have reaction from the players in the locker room as well. And then you'll see my face after about half of the show, and we'll get my take on it because nobody wants to hear from Kevin and Stevie anymore at that point.
Stevie going to answer some tweets, though. I think we are going to bring
Yeah, that's a fun little segment. Ask Stevie or Ask Number 13.
Yeah.
We've had he's been really cool since he joined our team as far as social media goes. And he puts out some questions, and then maybe fans ask a question and he's going to answer it, and he has some interesting answers to the questions. So Stevie's been a fun, different spice to the show this year that I think is good. Fans are going to really like. Stevie loves the Bills. Let's not get that twisted.
Yeah.
But he has, like, especially when we're talking about wide receivers, like, he was a really good wide receiver in the league for a few years there.
Yeah.
He's got some expertise in that department, so he can kind of help us break down everything that has to do with the game and have some fun too, because he's real chill and cool about his perspective on the game.
So cool. And Andy and I will then be back here with a post-game podcast coming up on Sunday evening. So busy time of year, but a fun time of year. And it's underway.
For more of this fun, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, whether you're watching us on YouTube or Facebook, listening to us from Apple Podcasts or Google or Spotify or any of those things. Share it with your friends. Give us comments, recommendations, all those sorts of things. What do you guys want to hear about? What sorts of topics would you like us to discuss? And maybe we can answer some of those questions and help viewers either understand more or get the insights from, when we get to go and talk to the players, or do you want to hear more analytical kind of stuff? Let us know, and we'll try to help you out.
As always, thanks for joining us, everyone.